Hi, this is Savara, and I'm a Clinical Application Coordinator for Phoenix area. And in this presentation, we are going to go over creating patient lists with clinical reminders. Our learning objectives will be to discuss the use and application for patient list. We're going to demonstrate patient list creation with menu. We're going to discuss the patient list creation within the report menu. We're going to discuss the patient list creation within patient list. We're going to demonstrate converting patient lists into an OERR list. And we're going to discuss configuration to assigning these lists to users. You create the patient list using the reminder do report. This list is stored in the reminder patient list file. This method for generating a patient list will not be as efficient as generating a patient list from a rule set. Creating a patient list from reminder patient list, you don't need any steps. You don't need any setup, and is created automatically by national rule sets defined in the extract parameter criteria. This list can be exported to OERR team list. List is available in EHR, and notifications can use that OERR list to send alerts to other providers. So here is an example of how to create a patient list with the do report. You create your do report like we went over in the presentation on clinical reminders report. But at the end, when it tells you, do you want to create a patient list, you are going to go ahead and select yes. So here's an example of how to create a patient list using the do report. So you're going to do your report as you usually normally do it. You can also, in this slide here, I'm showing you how to create a report template. So if you want to use this report for future use, you store it in a report template and then you make that available to users. The only difference is when you want to create a patient list in your report, you're going to go ahead and select yes at the point where it says save do patient to patient list. And that will store it in the reminder patient list file. And it creates a list. And what I want you to notice here, it took 54 minutes to create this list. And this is a training database. We don't have a lot of patients on the training database. So it's not as efficient to create a patient list through the reports, the do report, but it can be done. And then this is an example of how that list looks. So I'm basically just showing you the end result of the report. So now let's go over how to create a patient list using the patient list menu in the reminder menu. Rules are the basic building blocks for the construction of patient list. Rules may be defined using the reminder term, patient cohort from a reminder definition, but it must have a usage of PL. So when you create your reminder definition and you plan to use this reminder definition just to create your patient list, you must construct it that it's PL, patient list, or an existing patient list. So the type of list that we have finding rules. These are based on reminder terms. You find patients with a finding defined in the term. You can create a reminder rule. These are based on reminder definition cohort logic, and usage field must be L for patient list. And then patient list rule. These are built on patient lists based on patients in an existing list. So if you already have patients from one list, you can bring them over to another list. And then set of rules is you're going to combine list rules and logic operators. And then set rules, you combine list rules and logical operations into a series of steps which can which are processed to build a patient list. Here are the logical operators. You got add patient, it works like or. Any patient for which the finding is true will be added to the list. Remove, it works like and not. Any patient for which the finding is true will be removed from the list. You got select, it works like and. Any patient from which the rule is true will remain on the list, but those which the finding is false will be removed from the list. And then insert finding is a special operator that lets you store patient data in the patient list. If a finding is based on a term, it will store the subset data from the term in your list. Each rule has a unique name. We recommend using naming convention to name your rules. National rules cannot be edited. Each rule set will contain a class. Sequence, their 3-digit numbers define the order in which the list rules in the rule set will be evaluated. Add patient rule set should always be the first sequence to build your list. Each sequential step uses the patient list from the prior step as the starting list to be added or deleted to. Goal rule is to initiate your list with the rule that produces the smallest number of patients. Each sequence may include a beginning and ending date. These are optional fields that can be defined in the list rule, which will further restrict the criteria for building the patient list. Alternatively, the reminder term can contain the beginning and end dates. Patient list field is used for patient list rules. Extract patient list name field provides a mechanism to automatically generate patient list name for patient lists that are built on a recurring basis for extract runs. And this is not really used, so we're not going to create any extract patient rules for our patient lists. So here is how you create the rule. First, you're going to define the type of rule to create. Is it a finding rule? Is it a reminder rule? Is it a patient rule? Or is it a rule set? So we're going to create 2 finding rules. So the first finding rule will be hypertension. So I want my rule to find all patients that are hypertensive. And then my second finding rule will be a clinical location. So I created a clinical location, general clinic, and I'm going to add that into my rule. So now I have 2 finding rules that I've created, one for hypertension and one for general clinic, and these are finding rules. Now I'm going to create the rule set. So I'm going to name it. I want all patients that were seen at the general clinic with hypertension. My first rule, I'm going to start it with the lower. You want to start it with the lower set. So my first rule will be to reminder patient list menu. So let's go over how to create a patient list using the reminder patient list menu. Rules are the basic building blocks for construction of patient lists. Rules may be defined using a reminder term, patient cohort from a reminder definition, but that reminder definition must have the usage of PL or an existing patient list. There are 4 different types of finding. There are 4 different finding rules. There's 4 types of list rules. The first type is a finding rule, which is FR, and it's going to be based on a reminder term. It's going to find patients with the finding defined in the term. The second rule is a reminder rule, RR. It's based on the reminder definition cohort logic. The usage field must be L for the patient list. The next rule is a patient list rule. You can build the patient list based on an existing list. Then you have rule sets. It's going to combine lists of rules and logic operations into a series of steps which are processed to build a patient list. There are some logical operators. One is the add patient, which works like an OR. Any patient for which the finding is true will be added to the list. Remove works like an AND NOT, and any patient for which the finding is true will be removed from the list. Then you have select, works like and any patient for which the finding is true will remain on the list, but those that the finding is false will be removed from the list. You can insert a finding. These are special operators that let you store patient data in the patient list. If a finding is based on a term, it will store the subscript. It will store the CSUB data from that term in your list. Each rule has a unique name. We recommend that you use a naming convention to name your rules. National rules cannot be edited. Each rule set will contain a class. Sequence, their 3-digit number, define the order in which the rule set in the rule. Sequence is a 3-digit number that defines the order in which the list rules in the rule set will be evaluated. And actually in the sequence, I've noticed that if I put 1, it'll take it. It's not a 3-digit. So I'm pulling this from the VA manual, but it seems to have worked with just putting one digit for your sequence. There may be a reason why they want 3 digits, so it works for me with 1. And then you can add patient rule set. It should always be the first sequence to build your list. Each sequential step uses the patient list from the prior step as a starting list to be added or deleted to. So a good rule is to initialize your list with the rule that produced the smallest number of patients. Each sequence may include a beginning and end. It's an optional field and can be defined in the list rule, which will further restrict the criteria for building the patient list. Alternative, the reminder term can contain the beginning and ending dates. Patient list field is used for patient list rules. Extract patient list name field provides a mechanism to automatically generate patient list names for name lists that are built on recurring basis for extract run. We really don't do extract rules, so that's not something we use. So to create a patient list, you have to create the rule first. You need to define what type of rule is it. Is it a finding rule? So are you going to use a reminder term? Is it a reminder rule? Are you going to use a reminder definition? And if you use a reminder definition, that reminder definition needs to have the usage of L. Is it a patient rule? You're going to copy patients from one patient list to this patient list. Or is it a rule set? So are you going to copy multiple rule sets that you already have in place and create another rule? So I'm going to do a real simple one. It's just 2 findings: hypertension patients and that are being seen at the general clinic. So my first rule will be hypertension, and my term is to use the IHS Hypertension 2015 diagnosis codes to pull those patients. My second rule will be the clinic, and I created a hospital location reminder finding, and that's what I'm using here. I'm using the stop code of 01 for my second criteria. Then, so I'm going to create the finding rules. So I create 2 different rules. The first one is the clinic. That was the first rule is so I created my 2 rules. So now these are the finding rules. These are my finding rules. I have one that is a rule for the general clinic that is using my reminder term of hospital location to pull those patients. And then the second one is my hypertension. So it's going to use the IHS Hypertension 2015 term to pull those those patients in. So now I'm going to create the rule. So I want to create it that the first sequence will be the one that's going to produce the less amount of patients. If I run my first rule to be hypertensive, that means all the hypertensive people in my system, which is a larger patient list. So let's start with the clinic and with a time frame. So my first rule is I want to see which patients in my general clinic are hypertensive. So that will produce, or which patient have been seen in my clinic between 900 days to today. That's the smallest amount of patient that I'm going to get. So that's my first sequence. My second sequence here is going to be hypertensive. Okay, of all those patients that came in the last 900 days to my general clinic, how many of those are hypertensive? So my second rule is going to be applied to my first list that was generated with my first rule. And I put it together. Okay. So here is the sequence, and I run it. So then you go into PLM and you run the rule. So you create a patient list, you give it a name, and then you put in the rule set that you created, which in my case was the rule set that I created with my first finding for the general clinic. My second finding rule was for my hypertensive. I put a time frame, and then it's going to run it now. Okay. So now that I have that list, I can copy it to an OERR list. And so if you copy it to OERR list, it can be used to send notification to a group of providers that may not be that patient's ordering provider, PCC, or designated provider. Once assigned to the provider, the list is available in EHR, useful for coordination of care and care teams. At this time, when you convert it to the OERR list, it can be used to send notification to a group of providers that may not be that patient's ordering provider, PCP, or designated provider. Once assigned to the provider, the list is available in EHR. Useful for coordination of care and care teams. At this time, the OERR teams are not available in iCare, but you can manually copy the list into an EHR personal list. This will make this list available in iCare. So now I have no numbers here because, of course, I do not have any patients that were seen there, but I did run another rule for I just wanted to look for diabetic patients that didn't have the foot exam. And I used the diabetic foot exam reminder in order to generate this list. So here is the list. Now I don't have any patients because I created this rule, and of course this is a training database. I didn't have enough patients, but I have been creating other team list rules. So I created another testing rule. So that's the one we're going to analyze in this PowerPoint. We're going to look at the testing rule that I created, and that one basically I just went in and just grabbed some patients that were seen. So once I created So here's my team list. Now, this is the one I generated, number 4. However, didn't produce any patients because I really didn't have, this is a training database, and I really didn't have patients that were seen at the general clinic or that were hypertensive. But I've been testing these patient rules, and I do have one that I created under Phoenix testing rule. So that's the one I'm going to show you. I have 3 patients in there, and basically what I want to show you how you can grab your patient list that gets generated and convert it into an OERR rule. So that's what I want to show you how to do. So I'm going to grab the testing one that I created, and it actually just was looking for diabetic finding rule, which is diabetic patients that we're seeing. And I have 3 there, so this is my rule. And then these are the 3 patients that, so these are the, so this is my rule, and these are the 3 patients that shows up in my OERR list. So let's see how I created that. So what I do is I go into the OERR team list copy to. So it's you're going to go there, and then you're going to add which. So this is how you do it. So I'm going to grab number 7 from this list, which is my testing reminder class, because I do have some patients in there. And then I'm going to create my list, and so copying a reminder patient list to an OERR list. So you're going to go ahead and select COE. You're going to select which list you want to copy. And I decided to copy the smaller list that I have, which is number 7. Then once you copy that, it's going to take it over to the OERR list, and then you can go into BEH patient TEA and create. And you're going to need to grant access to this list to users. So once you bring it over there, you have to give it to the user so that way it shows up in EHR. You can also add more either patients, or you can add a clinic here, and I'll add additional patients from a clinic. Now the clinic is not really, I haven't really further tested this. I've had tested it with just putting a provider in, and if there's patients that are assigned to that provider, it may bring it over to the list. But there are some potentials here that just needs further testing, and I have not done those testing in order to really figure out what other advantage we have by creating an OERR list. But so I'm just going to show you real quickly. You create the list, then you jump into the team provider, you assign it to those providers that you want to give, you assign it to those providers you want to give access to this list. So when they go in EHR, they'll go into to the team list area, and then there is my patient reminder list, and these are my 3 patients. And then you can copy that list into personal list, and the reason why I may want to copy it over to my personal list is so that way I can get those patients in iCare, because at this point iCare does not see the list created here. They only see the list that's created on the personal list. Okay, because there's 2 different files that these things live, so that's why it doesn't see the one created from the OERR. So here is how I copied it, and then I can go into my reminder. Then I can go into iCare, and there is my test reminder team, because I transferred it over to that list. And then here's my panel. And then here's further the panel view. And hopefully, you know, potentially there's a lot of, and here's my panel view. So there's a lot of potential for these panel lists, and one of the potentials that I see is with notifications, might be good. The other potential is to provide a provider with the list of their hypertensive patients within the EHR. They can still do that in iCare, but sometimes it may be beneficial to have it in EHR. And the other benefit is that if you bring those patient lists over to iCare, then you can also create panels. But in iCare, again, if you use iCare, you can create your panels anyhow using those same reminder definitions and create your panels that way. So it's just there's more tools for you available to use. You can work with it and see how it better fits your needs. But I hope this was educational. It kind of gave you some avenues of other things that you potentially may want to implement at your site. It's just additional tools that as CAC we have available to help our providers with taking care of patients and to improve care. So if you have any questions, please contact your area CAC for further information or your local CAC. And I hope it was very useful, and thank you for watching. Bye now.